Hello GameMakers, this is GameMaker Rob, and in today's episode we cover a few bug fixes as well as implementing stats into the combat and having victory and defeat, so we can now move from map to map. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is a bug fix. At the moment, when you are selecting an option, even if there aren't any secondary options to choose, you can still press right and you'll be on the secondary option menu, but there's nothing to select, and it doesn't work very well. So we're just going to do a check to see if actually there are any secondary options to switch to, and if there aren't, then you can't switch to it, and it works pretty well, and it will work for all of the options. So all we have to do is go into obj test end step, and then actor taking turn, and then in this region where we pick an action from the menu, we just want to do this check here. So if the size of the secondary list is greater than 0, allow pressing left and right, otherwise it's not going to happen basically. So it's just this line here and this one. If you just run the game and test pressing right when there's no option, so for example, if we go to these characters here, they don't have any secondary options, so you shouldn't be able to press right on anything. It works for me. And same for these guys. Cool. So now we're going to the draw Gui event. We're just going to display a few stats for the current actor, just so we can have a better idea of what's going on during the game. There's probably going to be a few adjustments to it in the future, but for now it's just going to display stats when we are taking actions. So inside draw Gui event, the draw battle region, we're going to have a new region here at the top inside this if statement. And this is all the code. So we're setting the font to options. We're going to be drawing from the top left with a white colour. We want to know the height of the GUI because we're going to be using that to draw from. We're going to display 6 stats, and this is how we're going to display them. And if we run the game, you can see it in action. So we can see in the bottom stats for the different fighters and stuff. It's a lot better than having nothing at all. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to make the camera follow the current actor when they're moving. The first thing we're going to do actually is going to SCR center on actor, and instead of using the actor's grid X and grid Y, we're going to use the actor's X and Y. The reason for that is using grid X and grid Y will give us like a more of a staggered snap to camera, where the character will move a tile and then the camera will snap, and then the camera actor will move another tile and then the camera will snap to that again. What we want to see is like a smooth following, so every time the actor moves a pixel, we want the camera to follow that as well. So that's what this is going to do, just by using the actor's X and Y. We're using the same formula for isometric drawing coordinates to work out where the camera should be, but we're just using actor's X and Y divided by grid size. And then the other thing we need is inside obj actor and the step event in the moving region, in this block of code here, where we're checking if X or Y is not equal to the target, then we just want to run the script here. So let's run the game, make sure this is working. Let's try someone else. It looks pretty smooth. Let's try moving someone who is near some ground that it can move over. Maybe this guy. Yeah, this will do. Let's watch him move up a little bit. Okay, cool. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is actually implement our stats we have for characters, items, that kind of thing. There's 2 stats I decided not to use because it's a lot of code for little gain. I don't think you need to see that. Block melee, block ranged aren't going to be used, but fire resist, ice resist, wisdom, intelligence, strength, defense, all those are going to be used. So we use quite a few. The first thing we want to do is go into OBJ animation and the step event. This bit here, sorry, so we're in taken action, and then we are in initialize, and in this region here where we say add a number animation and calculate stat effect 2, in this region, at the very top, we're going to use a new script. It's going to calculate the value for us. We're going to store it in value. In the XP region, if value equals 0, then that's going to be counted as a miss. And so we're only going to give 1 XP for the hit. So that's what this is for. And then we just need to get rid of previous code we were using to calculate the effect. This stuff here, we don't need it, because it's all going to be done in this script, and we're going to pass the script the current actor from OBJ test, the target that's being affected by the item, and what item is being used. So now if we create a new script and call it SCR action calculation. So like I said, we're going to pass it the current actor, the target of the item, and the item being used. We want to know the actual stat that's affected by the item. The how much the stat's going to be modified by is going to be stored in effect value, and what kind of items being used, because we don't need to worry about resistances for fire when using a sword. So if it's an attack, make a roll. It's possible to miss an attack. So hit chance is going to be based on the current actor's accuracy. Take away the target's agility, and then we're just going to clamp hit chance between 1 and 99. So there's always at least a small chance of missing and of hitting. So if roll is less than or equal to hit chance, then it's going to be a hit. Because we are having negative numbers do damage, then we want to minus the current actor's strength away from effect value, and we want to add the target's defense value to effect value. If the roll was greater than hit chance, then we're going to set effect value to 0, so it's going to be a miss. If it's a spell, so what this line is going to do is it's going to add the intelligence value to the effect value, but if we're doing an offensive spell, we don't want to add to the number, we want to take away from it. If it's a damaging spell, then the target can use their wisdom to reduce the effects. So if effect value is less than 0, then it's a damaging spell. So we want to increase effect value by the target's wisdom. So we also want to check for resistances. So fire resist and ice resist. This is going to work for healing spells as well. All that's going to happen is resist is going to stay at 0, and then all of this is going to get times by 0, and it's going to equal 0 basically. So so we're going to check the tomb of the item. If it's fire, then resist is going to equal the target's fire resist. If the tomb is ice, then resist is going to equal the target's ice resist. This is going to be a percentage decrease. So if someone has an ice resist of 50, it reduces the value by 50%. Modifier, equals 100 take away resist divided by 100. This is going to give us a number between 0 and 1, or maybe negative 1 and 0. So between negative 1 and 1, that's what modifier is going to hold. As long as modifier is not equal to 0, so there has been some resistance, then we're going to modify effect value by it. So if effect value was 100 and modifier was 1.5, then this would equal 150, for example. Just in case you were wondering why the value would go up, you could have negative resistances, so you could have people that were damaged more by fire spells, like a negative 50%, they would always take more damage from fire spells. We don't want to see any decimals, fractions, that kind of thing, so we're always going to round effect value up. That's what this is for. We also want to clamp it so we don't get ridiculous values. If the item does damage, then we're going to use a clamp of a minimum of -999 and a maximum of -1. If it's a healing or a positive kind of spell or item, then we're just going to use 1 and 999. And last of all, after all this stuff has been done, then we're going to modify the target's stat affected by the effect value and then return that. So if we go back to OBJ animation, effect value is going to be stored inside value. So that's how it's going to work. If we run the game, so if I cast Firewall at the Knight and Archer, I think it is, they'll take different amounts of damage. Knight takes 18 and the Archer takes 20, which kills him because he only has 20 health anyway. That's because I think the Knight has more wisdom and he only has 7 HP left as well. One thing that I need to do before we finish with this stat stuff is we need to make sure that the HP and mana of the actors doesn't go above their max. So in the end step event of OBJ actor, we're going to say A stats let me just increase the size of this. A stats E stats dot HP current equals clamp A stats no, yes, that was right. Shit. Basically, we're saying make sure HP current doesn't go below 0 or above the max. Should have a closing bracket there. And then copy this, paste it, MP, MP, MP. That's it. So this stops us healing above a certain value. Keep HP, MP within certain range. Okay, cool. Let's also test. Let's also test missing. Quite easy to do. We're just going to go back into the script and here, line 22, we're going to uncomment it out. So every roll is going to be a miss. What should happen? We should see the current actor attack, and then we should see a miss animation, and then we should see the attacker, the current actor, get 1 XP. Okay, so move. So we missed, and we got 1 XP. Cool. Okay, so one final thing regarding stats. We're not taking into account items that give a passive bonus, like rings of fire, that kind of thing. So we can do that now. Inside OBJ test, end step, setup battle, create an instance for this unit, create stats, and then under where we create the stats for the unit, we're going to have this region here. So if this actor has an accessory, it's not going to be empty. All of the accessories give a boost to a stat. So what stats affected, how much is it affected by, increase that stat by the value. Okay, so now we are going to have victory and defeat happen in the battle. We need to do a couple of things. First of all, in OBJ test, in the create event, we're going to add 2 new enumerators to eBattle. We're going to have defeat and victory. I think that's it for the create event. And then if we go into the step, got a few things to do. So inside setup battle, we want to clear our grids, node grid, actor grid, anim grid. The reason for that is after we progress from one battle to the next, if we don't clear these grids, they could hold IDs of things that don't exist, and that'll give us a crash. So that's why we need to clear them. So make sure you've got these 3 lines down. That's it for setup battle. And then inside in battle, we want to be inside where we are checking if battle state equals next actor. So above our next actor region, we want to have a new region called check for victory or defeat. What we're going to do is we are going to check every instance of OBJ actor just to see if they're alive or not. They're going to get added to a list, either the player list or enemy list. If one of those 2 lists, if the size of one of those 2 lists is 0, then someone has lost the game. So that's what this is about. As long as the battle hasn't already been set to defeat, which is possible from script actor dies, we'll do that later on. So as long as the battle hasn't already been lost, create 2 lists with every instance of OBJ actor. If they're not dead, add them to one of the lists. Basically, if they're in a player's team, they go on a player list, otherwise they go into the enemy list. If either of those lists are empty, then it's either going to be a victory if the enemy's is empty, or a defeat if the player's empty. We could have a situation where both lists are empty. In that case, it's going to be a defeat for the player. And then just get rid of the lists. So that's all we need to do for that. And then in our next actor region, because the battle state could have been changed in our new region, we just want to encircle all of the code in this region in this statement here, checking if battle state equals next actor, and then making sure we've got a matching closed bracket there. So here and here, all of this is the same as before. And then last thing inside the step event for this object, underneath our in battle region, we're going to have a new region called victory and defeat. All we're going to do is we're going to check to see if battle state is victory or defeat, and we're going to create an instance of OBJ animation, and we're going to tell it either it's victory or defeat, and we're going to play the appropriate animation. We only want to create one instance of OBJ animation. So we need to check as well to make sure that no instance already exists of that. That's what this part of the line here is for. So all we're doing, if it's victory or defeat, create one instance of OBJ animation and tell it it's either going to be victory or defeat. You don't have these enumerators yet. We're going to add them next. So if we go into the create event of OBJ animation, so inside eAnimations we've got victory and defeat, and we also have 4 new entries for our a text array. We're just going to play the same animation that we do for battle, but it's just going to say victory or defeat, like that. So we've gone into the step of OBJ animation, and we're going to be editing battle intro region. We also want to change this line here, so we want this region to run as long as the state isn't taking action. So as long as the state is not taking action, do all of this. So instead of just setting the battle state of OBJ test to set up turn order, we want to check the state of animation object first to see if it's battle intro before we do that, because we don't want to be doing this if it's a victory or defeat. That's just going to reset everything and mess things up. So now we've got 2 regions, 2 new regions. Victory is fairly lengthy, so I've got this second line here commented out just so we can test this, whether it's a victory or defeat. When there's been a victory, if you remember, every instance of OBJ actor has their own unique stats array with their own stats. We haven't touched our grid at all, our character classes grid, which is where we got the stats from initially. So to maintain persistence between battles, we want to transfer those stats back from the stats arrays back into the grid, at least for the player team objects anyway. So okay, so with any actor that was in the player's team, we want to transfer their stats back to our grid, our this one, global dot character, this one, because this grid is where we got our stats from in the first place. We could have some units that are dead, so we need to check that as well. So we're going to go through every stat for each actor that's in the player's team, and we're going to say, okay, if this actor's HP is less than or equal to 0, then they're dead. So we're going to clear every entry for that character from our grid. We're going to set value to nothing, otherwise value is going to equal the string of whatever is stored in the stats, because we want our grid to store strings, and whatever value equals either nothing or something, we're going to add value back to the corresponding entry for that particular actor. We also want to make sure they have the MP and HP refilled between battles, so as long as they're alive, set their current HP to the max HP and the current MP to the max MP. This code is pretty much copied from the conversation stuff inside OBJ test. We just want to increase the story state by 1, stop OBJ test showing the map, reset the camera, set the state of OBJ test to idle, and also the battle state to not ready, resetting those values, because we don't destroy this object, we keep the same one throughout the whole game. And also set the player state to idle so they can move again, and get rid of any existing actor objects that there are. And then for the defeat region, normally we'd go back to a title screen, but we don't have one, so we're just going to say, okay, end the game. So the game's going to close down. And that's it for the step events. And now we want to draw defeat or victory. So go into the draw Gui event, and we just want to change this to say as long as animations is not taking action, and do this. It's the same code as before. It's just this line that we changed. And then we need to also check to see when an actor dies during an animation. We want to see if they were actually a mandatory character. So if we go into SCR actor dies, at the bottom we want this stuff. So if the actor must survive the battle, then we're going to set the battle state of OBJ test to defeat. There was actually one more thing I forgot to add in the step events of OBJ animation. So in our taken action region, when we want to get next action, so down here we were just setting battle state to next actor and destroying OBJ animation. If a mandatory character has died, then battle state is going to equal defeat, and we don't want to change it back to next actor, otherwise it's just going to keep going. So we need to do a check to say as long as battle state is not equal to defeat, then we can keep going and get next actor. Otherwise we want to end, after all the animations are done, we want to end the battle. So that should be everything. Okay, there is one more thing we need to do actually. I discovered we weren't clearing the turn list, so instance IDs were being carried over from battle to battle when they no longer existed, which is causing crashes. So to counteract that, if we go into the end step of OBJ test and then in setup battle, where we are clearing the other lists here, we want to clear the turn list, and that will fix the problem. And so we can test victory quickly, we're going to have this at the very bottom. We're going to say if we press escape, then with every instance of OBJ actor, if they're not in a player's team, then tell them that they're dead. So run the game. We should be able to go to a new map, play it, that kind of thing. Okay, so press escape, they're all dead, backspace, victory, and we can now walk to a new map, have the conversation, and we should be able to move and attack, that kind of thing. Yeah, awesome. Press backspace a lot, shouldn't be any crashes because turn list should only hold the IDs of these actors. Press escape again, win the game, go on to the next one, conversation, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. It's coming along nicely. We do have one more thing to do for the battle at least, which is going to be AI taking actions, and then I think that'll be the last one. So I will catch you then. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.